All right, all of you freedom-loving boys and girls, men and women, welcome to Mission Critical Podcast, episode 48. If you are watching or listening to this, you are the resistance.
Yep.
All right, we are your hosts. I'm one of them, Mark, and then over there,
Redbeard,
the magnificent. Hey, so this is episode 48. Redbeard came up with a good scheme and maneuver a little over a week ago. Last week, we didn't do as good of a job of executing. We'll get better. But last week was Liberty Week. This week is the War Room. So part one tonight of the War Room. And then Friday will be part two. Redbeard, why don't you tell everybody what the War Room is all about?
Absolutely. I'd love to. So the War Room is going to encompass all subjects. Predominantly, it's going to be a focus on foreign situations, including some domestic situations as they pertain to us. But we're going to be looking at things that surround geopolitics, conflicts, anything that's really going to have a much broader effect as opposed to just a domestic effect upon us. It'll really allow us to get into the nitty gritty and delve into topics like Ukraine, the border, and a lot of those different things that just seem to fit better for our War Room week. So we hope you guys enjoy the War Room week and all of the content that if you're looking for that type of content, you'll know exactly where to find it now. So
that's exactly right. You'll know where to find it. And it's going to, fluctuate just a little bit because, as Jeremy kind of alluded, there will be some international issues that actually have a domestic impact on us, whether it's the continental United States or us as Americans, vis-a-vis a treaty or an alliance. And we'll kind of get into a little bit of that here tonight. All right. So we've got a special guest. I'm going to bring him on. Well, I just saw him disappear from his camera. No. All right. We're going to bring on a special guest here for tonight. And let him introduce himself, make a couple comments, and then we're going to kick it off and jump right into it because we've got a lot to go over. All right, Patrick, you're on mute right now, but you have been here before. But just in case, why don't you give everybody a little bit about who you are and why in the hell are you hanging out with us, and what is it that you hope to accomplish by being here, sir?
Hey, well, thanks for having me again. I basically on here, I used to work with Mark at CIA. For, I don't know, a period of about at least 3-4 years. We kind of crossed paths on numerous times, also served in the military together. I'm a military officer still on the reserve side and have a combined total of about, 32, 33 years of government service. So in a wide variety of things from law enforcement to homeland security to intelligence and just military. In general, so both in the Corps and the Army. So that's why I'm here, and hopefully we can shed a little light on some of the topics we're going to discuss tonight, being the War Room setting.
Hey, and I'm just going to give a quick plug. So whenever whoever you are, and whenever you watch this, you don't know it's from Adam. You haven't had a beer with us in the past. Our backgrounds, our pant size, none of that shit really kind of matters, right? It's the content, what we're talking about, the message we're trying to get out. And I just got to give a quick plug here for Patrick. So Patrick just kind of really downplayed that, so yeah, we knew each other in the agency, but more importantly, we knew each other in the military before that. And I don't care if it's active duty, the reserves, the National Guard. I'm just here to tell you, and I'm so happy that Patrick could join us tonight. He was one of the primary, of our guests that we get to bring on. Patrick really came to my mind tonight because Patrick has an incredibly analytical mind, and he's an incredible trainer. He can see through the bullshit and figure out like, hey, but if you don't do this, then here's what your second and third order effects are going to be. And I think his unique background and who he is as a person, that insight is going to come into play here tonight. Redbeard, now after I just pumped him full of a lot of hot air, do you have any other comments before I jump into it here, sir?
Not honestly, man, not really. I'm just as happy as you are to have Patrick back. He's always been a great guest, and I really have to say that I really have appreciated all the guys that we've had on here, and I look forward to working with all of them moving ahead too in this new format. And I think it's going to be beneficial not only to us but to everybody watching. So,
and then on that note, I'll do one quick piece of housekeeping. Down and dirty, we'll do this again on Friday. But we are going to change our days and our times. So this will be our last week of our Tuesday night and our Friday night. going into next week. So that's the first week of March. So we'll take this all the way through the end of this month. And I guess Friday is the 1st of March. But then starting that first full week of March, Redbeard, unless I got this mixed up, we're going to do Monday nights, 1800 Central Standard Time, and Thursday nights, 1800 Central Standard Time. So that's our little housekeeping. It kind of works with what Redbeard wants to do. And I'm not going to lie, it works a little bit better with my schedule, as Redbeard and some of our guests can attest to. You behind the scenes, like, you know, it might look like I'm calm above water, but I'm like scrambling underneath because I'm just I need a little bit more time to get ready for this podcast. And I don't want to waste your time by coming here unprepared, especially that Redbeard's kind of got us on this new direction. So again, housekeeping, we're going to as of next week, the beginning of March, the first full week of March, our schedule is going to be Mondays and Thursdays, 1800 Central Standard Time for both of those days. All right. Moving on. Here we go. So our little kind of intro, if you will, into the war room first week and into what we're going to talk about here. I just kind of came up with a little narrative I'm going to use to get Redbeard and Patrick kind of their juices flowing. And then we're going to go into a series of events and questions. So if you really think about this, if you look in recent events, and not everybody has the time to read news, you know, outside of mainstream media and do a lot of research. But if you look at it, there seems to be this trend, right? Everybody is hell-bent on leather in keeping us involved in the Ukrainian-Russian conflict, and more dangerously, or more, in my humble opinion, more dangerously, attempting to get Ukraine into NATO. And whenever I see this kind of commentary, I just keep scratching my head and saying, why would we do that? And then I start thinking, well, who are the people who want this to happen? I know it's not any of the three of us here, and it's probably not any of you people who watch our podcast or watch anyone else's podcast. I'm even going to go so far and go on a limb and say, you're not a sane human being if you think that we should be doing this. And we're going to bring up some articles and stuff to kind of prove this point. But it just really makes me wonder, like, well, why in the hell are we doing this? And part of me is like, I think it's in order to continue the concealment of their crimes. Now, who are they and what are those crimes? Well, you do your own research. Maybe this is a little tinfoil hat. Maybe this is part of next week's series, but there's clearly something wrong here. And I think it's incumbent upon each and every one of us, right? We still are free men and women. I mean, kind of. I mean, you could debate that nowadays. And these are questions that we all have the right to ask. And these are questions that our government and our government leaders, whether they're elected or not, are beholden to us, the citizens of America, to answer those damn questions. And when we see this subterfuge and we see this keeping things at, arm's length, or as Jeremy and I were talking about right before we went live, I can't remember what the term is. Jeremy, what do we call the censorship industrial complex? Is that what people, there just seems to be something going on here, because you have a whole bunch of people, politicians, again, elected, unelected officials, employees, big figures, and, media and business. They all seem to be so willing to go to war with Russia. And now, mind you, none of them will go to war. None of their children will go to war. And as Redbeard has pointed out, hey, look, the Ukrainian military will gladly take you, Lindsey Graham. If you want to go there and kick some Russian ass, well, then just go volunteer and fly over there. But that's not the point. That's not what they're willing to do. So there's something wrong here. I don't know what it is, and I don't know who they are. You can make your own decisions. Maybe this will come up on Friday's podcast. Matter of fact, Redbeard, I'll stop you right there. We'll bring that up on Friday. All right. We'll go into that.
That'll be good.
Because I do want to elaborate on that. But
absolutely.
But I think a lot of what's going on is it's by design in order to cover up their crimes, because these are evil people who don't want to be found out. They don't want to be. They're not willing to go to jail. They're willing to send me and you to die, so they can continue to, so they can continue to make money illicitly off the backs of war and our country. So that's kind of the primer for what we're about to get into. And before I do it, Redbeard, Patrick, I see Patrick kind of smiling and nodding a little bit. Anybody want to add or take away from that? Again, I'm going to start using it in agree or disagree type of format. Agree.
I'll let
disagree.
Patrick go first.
All right.
Yep. So I'll just say, obviously, I'm an angry concurrence with you on that. It's something that, looking at long term, like what benefits people to make these decisions to all of a sudden jump into that. we're really pushing. It almost seems like, we're pushing for World War III. And how do we win that? We've got China to deal with as well. We've got other adversaries all over the world now. The the bad guys are lining up for us. So we might want to, use a little bit of patience and, think a little bit into this as to like what we can gain for it. But, just like, I don't want to delve into, something we're going to talk about later on this week, but there's always that military industrial complex thing. Like, hey, those people are big contributors to politicians, and, it drives decisions. So, something always to keep your eye on.
Yeah, this wasn't part of my prep or my show notes for you guys, but you just said something that made me remember something on a personal note. So I have a family member who's, and he's really good at it. He's, like, how some people dabble in the stock market.
Yep.
So this was about 3-4 years ago. He and I were talking, and, and I was kind of like becoming aware of his interest. And I started talking to him about defense contracting stocks. And it was like a year, 2 years later, and he was like, holy shit, dude, like it's because some stocks, like, he's not in that military, background. So he he's into stocks, but he's looking at different types of commodities. And then I started talking to him about some of the things. And then you just started seeing this all, like, to your point, Patrick. And so to me, I think that solidifies kind of the comment. It's like, hey man, follow the money. You've heard a million other people say it in a million other circumstances, crime, or in these right now, follow the money. How is it that some people continue to become wealthier and wealthier, make more and more money off of the suffering, the pain, and the misery and the death of other people? That should give us pause. So,
right.
All right. Redbeard, you want to add to that? Agree, disagree?
Yeah. Just real quick. Obviously, we've talked about this enough to where I think we have common ground on this subject. And I'm just going to say, it's at, the question is begged, like, at what cost? Like, what is the outcome that people are really expecting here? If we bring in somebody like Ukraine during conflict, then where does that bring us? Brings us to the brink of absolute destruction. And the thing of it is that's a sentiment that's echoed, even by those in Russia. It's one of those very undesirable cliffs that you don't want to be pushed over. And moreover, I just want to reiterate Mark's point, which is, look, like, if you really feel that emboldened, if you really have strong feelings about it, Mark isn't wrong. We've talked about this several times before. You can be on a plane, probably, maybe tomorrow, maybe within the week, to whatever side you want to go on. Like, we've seen this. This is one war to where people literally can wander into whatever side they want to go on, and they'll be involved and included and whatnot. So, like, how about this? Instead of sending countries to fight in a war that really we don't need to be in, take your principles to the field and bring them there, and like, in the end of the day, people might not like mercenary work or contractor work or whatever. That's fine. But in the end of the day, we live in a world to where that is a possibility. You can go fight for who you want to fight for. And for the most part, most people aren't going to think too much about it. It's not the 70s, 80s, and 90s. There's a lot more leeway now to where you can go and do that. So I just wanted to say that. I agree with you, Mark. And if you do have strong convictions, then you can do that. So,
hey, I just got to point out though, and then I'm going to move into the articles. But you just made me think of something. Yeah, Lindsey Graham. If you believe it so badly, Redbeard's right. Just go over there and do it. Unlike if you're an international tennis player and you want to go to a country during the middle of the bullshit and you aren't going to take the jabby jab, you can't do that. But, hey, seriously, if you want to go and fight for one side or the other in this conflict, hey, knock yourself out, man. No one's going to stop you there, right?
Yep.
All right, as we get spun up here. All right, so I'm going to share some stuff here. Give me a sec. And I'm going to share 2 articles initially just to kind of get our blood going. And then the third article I'm about to share, that's where I'm going to start kind of poking some questions at you guys. But you're more than willing to chime in here. So here's one thing on this note. And I don't care if you like InfoWars or not. This article is all over a whole bunch of different mediums. But this is the NATO Secretary General reaffirming, right? Reaffirming, even though there has been no vote or any of this kind of stuff, that Ukraine will eventually be brought into the Western lines, into NATO. And as Redbeard has pointed out many times before, that's clearly one of Russia's red lines, right? That's you cross this line and it's all out war, right? So this right here, I'm sorry, I should have come back to, I did it wrong. I got too many tabs up, boys. Well, no, I guess that kind of worked out okay. I wanted to do that full screen. There we go. So everybody can kind of read it. So if this is what you want to do, if this is where we're going, I'm using this as the primer, the first example to simply question, hey, what the hell's really going on here? We're already saying it's a done deal, just like a New York judge says, yeah, this is a trial, but you're already guilty, and now it's just a simple matter of figuring out how much money you owe. That is not how we operate. That is not how we do things, right? And I'll kind of bring up, if we have time, I'll bring up Biden and the whole thing in the Red Sea, because there's no congressional approval for any of that either. But, whatever, that's so there's one thing to kind of scare everybody. Yeah. We've got an organization an alliance that we are, a member of, a signatory. Redbeard's talked about this plenty of times in the past about entangling alliances. That is just in the face of all prudence saying, yeah, we're going to get these guys into NATO. And we've got the other belligerent in this conflict saying, if that happens, it's all out war. I would hope saner heads would prevail at some point here. Yeah. So that's one article right there. Yeah. Let me just share another one real quickly to get your kind of blood going. Here we go. This should really get everybody kind of like thinking about this. All right, so this is from Visual Capitalist. It's over on Zero Hedge. But just look at this right here, right? This is last year's spending. Look at that right there. I'm here to tell you, on my commercial side or my business side, I'm a small business owner, and the economy sucks, and it'd be nice. But instead, we're spending $860 billion over in NATO. So you got to ask yourself, do you really feel that every one of those dollars is going and it's being appropriately spent? Is it accounted for? Is your town, are all the roads and the bridges, is your local infrastructure good to go? You have no homeless crisis. You've got no poverty in your town. Everything's hunky-dory where you live. So therefore, and we're so rich, we can afford to spend this much money in an organization that seems to be, for whatever reason, hell-bent on bringing us into World War III. So just kind of throwing that out there as well. Just like, this isn't me making shit up. There it is right there. So now let me get to the real slide to kind of kick things off here. Get these guys. Let's see if their blood gets going. Here we go. Well, this might get Redbeard going, right? So whether you before I pop this up, whether you believe or don't believe the headline I'm about to show you, it should give you pause. Right? This just happened a couple days ago. I'm just going to start it off right there. Patrick or Redbeard, whoever wants to start first. I mean, agree, disagree? Do you see any problems with this? Like, they're claiming that only Redbeard, only 31,000 Ukrainians have died so far. Only.
Well, I'll take it real quick because I actually want to hear what Patrick has to say after I finish. It seems very, I don't even know how to describe it, honestly. I mean, look at the two biggest battles that have happened between Avdiivka and Bakhmut. Look at how many people were there. That there were more people there. And mind you, like when you look at these statistics, they throw these numbers out. How are they dividing those out? Is that all dead? Is that dead and wounded? Is that, there's a lot, like, you have to break these things down. And if you look at the two biggest battles, there were more people than that just on the casualty count alone. So there's an absurdity here. Obviously, this is something to try, and I don't know if it's to save face or anything like that. It's hard for me to step into the shoes of somebody that puts out that type of number. We have seen so many different numbers in coming from Ukraine, and I know that we can argue, Russia probably messes with their numbers too. I'm sure they do, but there's no consistency with Ukraine. Literally no consistency. At first, they're like, well, it's this, as pertaining to Russian losses, but we only have this for our losses. It's like, all I want to know is where's the consistency? Where's the integrity? Because all you're doing at that point is you're just lying to your own people about the severity of how things are. And mind you, in Avdiivka, just to kind of wrap this up, there was a place called the Citadel. It was one of the biggest strongholds for Ukraine over there in that city. It was one of the most hardened places. They spent years hardening this place. There was a lot of personnel over there. So if you're going to sit there and tell me that there's only 31,000 as a number, I just flat out don't believe it. Anybody that's looked at the numbers and the data, I mean, this is absurd and disingenuous to their own people.
All right. I'm going to have a response to what you just said, but let's go to Patrick. Patrick, agree, disagree with either, again, the article, the headline, the sensationalistic, and I'm throwing my own bias in there, as bullshit as it is, or with what Redbeard just said. Patrick, agree, disagree? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, well, I don't know what my thoughts are on this thing as a concept. I mean, imagine saying to anybody, hey, we just lost 31,000 people. First of all, that number is probably very low ball. But secondly, just the way it's thrown out there, that's kind of indicative of the way, any government leadership looks at military losses too. If he's attributing that number just to military losses, that's ridiculous in that way, right? I heard also that he's recently replaced the general of the Ukrainian army. So I wouldn't expect anything different, though. As far as the culture over there, I mean, graft and corruption is inbred into their culture. So who knows what the truth is? The people know, and I'm sure that they're not real happy with what's being talked about there. That's on the number side. On the actual employment of the military, I know this firsthand that our military is training theirs, before they go into combat in certain areas, right? So unfortunately, it's nowhere near. I mean, think of our National Guard, but think of even worse, right? So you just you walk around your neighborhood, call out all military age males to step out onto the street and get into some type of formation and tell them, well, congratulations, you're like the Oak Street Battalion now. And you here, come get your weapons and all the stuff that the U.S. military has given, with, uniforms, weapons, that type of stuff. And then now we're going to have a very, very brief training session, and then off we go. Now, the problem with how they run things, a lot of times, I think we talked about this in another podcast, but they don't have what we refer to as succession of command, meaning if a commander dies, the next in charge steps up and he knows the plan and he drives the unit forward to do whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. They don't do that. So there's a lot of confusion and lack of communication on the battlefield. And we're dealing with a modern battlefield where people can communicate quickly. Drone warfare is used. I mean, it's pretty funky. So I'd say those numbers are actually higher, but they're trying to minimize it so they can get more people to join. So it's shameful.
Well, so you kind of caught the comment I was going to make with Redbeard, which is neither an agree nor a disagree. And you kind of fleshed this out. That my point was, where are all the classic liberals? Only 31,000 have died, as you said, Patrick. Oh, really? Only 30,000 people have died? And we're supposed to be happy about that? That somehow it's look at our unit of our metric here. This is our measurement of success. Wow, we were really kind of thinking about 75,000 people would have died by now. So even that on its face, prophagia, right? That clearly screams of total removal from reality. A leader who, instead of saying we've only lost 31,000, you'd be like, hey, 30,000 of our brave men and women have given up their lives to keep the Russian bear at bay. You know, like you would have said that differently.
Like,
So
like a general lack of empathy.
big time. So, and that goes into what Patrick was kind of getting at. And that's kind of my point. And so you think about it, we lost 55,000, I think is the official number for Vietnam. And that, how long was that war for us? I mean, that was a whole hell of a lot longer than the 2 years, 3 years that we've been dealing with here in Ukraine. So you just nailed it right there. And that was kind of my point. It's like, where are the classic liberals, the people who even, I used to kind of look up to? I didn't necessarily agree with them, but hey, at least you had your morals and you had something you believed in and you stood up for it. And I'm okay with that. Where are those people? It's crickets. I got to get.
I think we need empathy and honesty again.
Hey,
say
Mark,
that again.
Empathy and honesty is what we need to start bringing back. Seriously.
Hey, is it possible to go back to? Is it possible to go back to the slide that showed the breakdown of like people's contributions to NATO?
If you give me a couple seconds, because as I'm going through the slide deck, I'm deleting those off of the slide deck. So because right now but if you give me a couple seconds, I can pull that back up and add it in here. So
I just like to kind of address that too, because if they're
give me a second. I'm going to put you solo. I'll put you solo layout. Give me a second, and I'll get that back up here for us.
Okay. Yeah. So there's been a big push, for Finland and Sweden to join NATO, and that was finally approved. So that is going to happen. I'm interested to see what their contributions are to NATO, and you'd also have to question what percentage of their GDP is that, right? So they want to join, they want the benefits of it, but what are they contributing? And I know that right now, I think Donald Trump's talking about that in like very stark terms, like, hey, if you haven't paid into this, you're going to kind of be on your own. And people are, raising their their hands crying foul. But that's just a common sense thing. Why should the United States be the main contributor to this thing? So, who's contributing troops and what equipment do they have, and then also what money are they putting for this? Are they going to grow and expand their military to match the threat that they're probably going to be facing directly? I mean, I know Finland and Russia have a very long, bloody history. What if that comes back again? Are they ready to take that on by themselves? Here we go.
Yeah, there you go. And honestly,
are they even listed? Finland and Sweden yet?
They're not in yet. Yeah.
Here, give me a sec. So you'd have to really kind of look down. So just going in. So I can see it a little bit better. Finland is 7.38. And by the way, this is in I believe, these are in dollars. So Finland is 7.38 billion. And what was the other country you said?
Sweden.
So if you can see, can you guys see the cursor? I don't think you probably can.
Yeah, I can barely
can.
Yep, I can.
Okay, so right here, that's Finland 7.38. What was the other country, Patrick?
Sweden. I don't think they're on there though.
They're not even on here. No, because they're not even. I mean, they just kind of technically. Yeah. But Patrick, to your point, let me just stop sharing that, and let me give you another one to your point, because I had this ready. Here we go. And this might help to your point. Can you guys see that one right there? Are we still full screen over on this side? Yeah, here we go. I'll go full screen. So Patrick, does that help with your conversation? Now this is more, this is kind of looking at it from a couple different ways. And so this is being presented by Statista, and Statista is a really good, I mean, they really don't give a shit your politics, right? Statista. So they are a good source of it. So, but here you kind of see it. It's a slightly different, but to both of your guys' point, now we're looking at more the financial aid, the humanitarian, and the military type of aid. So, I mean, again, look at that. If you can see my cursor, if you look at the EU institutions, they're basically given about $5 billion in military aid, whereas the United States of America is clearly giving away almost 50 billion in military aid, and then only a sliver of humanitarian. Matter of fact, if you look at that, hardly anybody's donating any humanitarian aid. It's all financial aid, which, as you can well understand, that what does that mean? Financial aid, is that bolstering your military? As we've talked about in previous episodes, small businesses in Ukraine are getting American dollars to stay open, whereas small businesses in America, wink, wink, nod, nod, hello. Yeah, we ain't getting any help or assistance from our government. So Does that help, Patrick?
It does. And, I always come back to this, and I think we talked about this on our previous podcast as well. NATO as a concept, I mean, who's going to show, if my organization was called up to go participate in that, are we going to have an American commander? Are we going to have, just some random NATO country commander? Is it going to be where the conflict is in Europe? Are they going to be the commander? I mean, I have very big issues falling under the command of somebody in NATO that doesn't really put forth a lot and probably doesn't have a fraction of the experience that the U.S. military has. So, and training and readiness. So that's always been a big, point of contention for me and a lot of folks.
And I'm going to take a quick moment of personal privilege here. In my experience in the military, and I spent a lot of my military time in the European theater, so to speak, working with militaries from different NATO countries, and I know Patrick's done so in I think more in your more recent military career. I don't think you were doing that in your younger military career, whereas for me it was in my kind of younger career, and then when I kind of knew you, because we were over there, we got deployed, we did our EIB and all that stuff over there, did the Schutz and Schnur over there. I've done a lot of work with NATO countries, and I remember when I was in 11 Hotel for a while, anti-tank missile gunner, and it was really good training, and we had different ways that we would simulate how you're looking at armor. And during that time, I just remember when French armor came up, and if you're from France, don't pick on me, because I will give another personal story about something that's really changed my mind about the French military. Well, really, maybe more like, the French DGIS and their SA, they're kind of ground branch guys, pretty squared away mother effers. But I just remember, here we are, a bunch of young E4s, E5s, E3s doing this training, and a French vehicle would show up and everybody would just kill it. And the instructors, I remember no, dude, that's one of your allies. We're like, hey, he's probably running away. So if we stop that vehicle, it'll cause a choke point. We'll slow down their attack. The Russians will have to spread. The Soviets, we'll have to move around them into our kill zones and that. And the instructors were kind of like, yeah, I guess we're gonna let that one slide. So it's a bad comment, but to Patrick's point, foreign militaries don't train the way we do, and being under the command of somebody who doesn't understand how we do warfare is not a good thing for troop morale, and it'll definitely potentially get you killed if you don't understand the way in which we conduct warfare. Patrick, is that a fair thing to say?
I'd say so. Yeah, that hits a nail on the head for me.
Okay. All right. Now we're going to move on to the next subject. So we just talked about. All right. So here we go. We're talking about combat deaths in Ukraine. That was one of our kind of big things here. Let me go into the next kind of. So we're talking about, okay, well, here's all these combat deaths in Ukraine, which it's only 30,000, right? So I'm just going to pose this next article is I don't know if the timing seems odd to me, but this is just a little bit kind of, oh, hang on. I think I just, wrong article. No, is that the right article? Nope, that's the wrong article. So things got a little out of whack here because I added some stuff. Give me 1 second here, guys. Yep. Here we go. I got it now. So why did this just get leaked, fellas? I'm just going to leave it right there. I'll pull it full screen. You guys just chime in. Let me know who wants to go first. But, oh, dang it. I just screwed that up. I apologize, everybody. Let me just share that again. Why did it? Where did it go? There we go. Nope, I got to stop sharing. All right. Getting a little better. Give me 1 more second. I'll do it one more time. Here we go. All right. And now coming back over here, and I'll try to put that back up full screen. There we go. So Redbeard or Patrick, the question here is, so, kind of piggybacking on the, hey, only 30,000 people, only 30,000 Ukrainians have died. Yeah. Why do you guys think then this got leaked? Why did this suddenly, and I'll bring it to a slightly different view. Dang it. Why do I keep screwing that up somehow? Yeah, I got to get a little bit better at the, which icon means what here. Let me just bring that up one more time. I apologize to everybody, getting better.
Just wait till our Monday podcast.
Oh yeah. Right. Yeah, there you go. All right. So I'll just leave it in that view. I was trying to bring us back to that view, and I had to go all the way back full circle. But before Patrick you answer, and before Redbeard you answer, and anybody who's watching, before you start formulating your opinion, you can see what the article is. And this just got leaked by, you know, like one of the mainstream media type of outlets. I will just say this, that when I saw this article, that's no surprise to me. I'm not in the agency. Excuse me, I'm not in the agency anymore. I haven't been in the agency since what, 2012, 2011. Well, duh, and are obvious. Of course we have bases. Of course we're doing things. It's the CIA. So to me, the fact that we have a presence there and that we're conducting intelligence operations, that's a no-brainer. However, why did this get leaked now? Patrick, Redbeard, who wants to take that? Agree, disagree? Am I right on that? Like, we shouldn't be surprised. This is what we pay the CIA to do, right? It's intelligence. It's an intelligence gathering organization, period. But why did this get leaked, and why now? Who wants to jump on it?
Patrick, if you want to take it, you can go first.
I like how you punted there, Redbeard.
Well, I took it first last time, so I'm just trying to be courteous.
All right, gotcha. You're being nice.
Yeah. First of all, anytime something gets leaked, you always have to question, hey, how accurate is it? I don't doubt that that's the case either, but who knows? And if it is, like, what did you just possibly compromise? There's always the operational security side of it. It makes you scratch your head and say, hey, why? But you take a look at like the psychological impact, and this is kind of one of these things with, it seems like this administration where they like to throw things out there. And who knows, leadership at the agency nowadays, I don't know, maybe that's something they want. They want to let the Russians know, hey, we're there, we're watching everything you do, and that type of thing. It's kind of a psyop, but I just don't see any upside to leaking that at this time, other than to let them know, hey, look, if you do, go further with this thing, or, you try to jump into one of these, NATO countries, we're all over you, and we're going to be able to predict that ahead of time so that we can get everybody spun up, and it won't be the easy romp that you thought it was going to be, something along those lines. But I don't know. I mean, I don't have any more insight than anybody else here, because, I've been away from the agency for a number of years now myself.
So I'm going to have to figure something out in the future, because like coming back to that is seeming to be a little bit of problematic. I'm looking at it and it's not giving me a chance to bring us back into that view. And I really want to bring us back into that view. I'll have to mess around with that in the future to figure out why I'm not seeing that. Oh, here, maybe I found an option. Is this... Here we go. There we go, fellas. Yeah. Now you can see what I just highlighted. All right. So I just found another way to do that in the future. So just looking at that, I just wanted to highlight Redbeard. Okay.
No, you're going right where I want to start off. So go ahead.
No. That's why I highlight it, because I thought that in the article was kind of a pivotal moment right there. Redbeard, why don't you grab it? And I'll pull this down and I'll bring you up full screen.
Well, yeah, it's a pivotal moment, and it actually, it's kind of one of those things to where it really does kind of dot the lines, and it creates this pathway, if you will, right? Because as it mentioned there, it was talking about the Maidan coup, but we have to remember that the use of the CIA existed before 2014 in Ukraine in order to help influence, public perception, public opinion, to help kind of ferment, certain things that the West was really looking to try and influence at the time. So it's not really surprising at this juncture that they're there. The question does remain, as these gentlemen have kind of said, it's hard to say what they're doing in this particular capacity, but I would say that it's going to be something somewhat similar to what they were doing back then, to try and help mold, perhaps gather information, because it's in their name, right? The Central Intelligence Agency, but to try and help shape or mold a public sentiment. Now, I do want to put something out there, and this, perhaps this will come up next week, but it bears mentioning. Patrick mentioned that there was a change in the the commander for the Ukrainian military. It's now Commander Syrsky, which is a whole new guy. He's got his whole backstory. We'll probably delve into that more this week, but there's, with that guy, like this guy's a little bit more hardline than Zaluzhny. Zaluzhny was not perfect, but he was the people's, kind of the people's general to some degree, right? But what you're starting to see also is you have this change. Zaluzhny got taken out, but there is sentiment going on to where, not only is the war not being as popular in Ukraine with fellow Ukrainians, but sentiment's starting to change for the Ukrainian government to some degree as well. So are they there to try and, change that perception? Are they there to try and manipulate that type of thing? It's hard to say. And I mean, we got two guys right here that they've been there, they've done that, they've seen how this type of stuff works. And if they're stumped, then I'm genuinely stumped, but I can only go based off of what they've done there already. So that's kind of what I wanted to say, is like, there is a pattern here, but is that going to follow the similar pattern, or is it going to be a deviation from what we've seen? So,
Patrick, any response to that?
Well, it's always the same thing with leaks. Is it a true leak that they got out and it was unintended, or was it a leak that's for a purpose, right? So who knows?
I agree.
And I was just going to throw in there, like, this is clearly not a leak. So when certain quote unquote, as you did, leaks come out, it's all for political maneuvering. It's for political machinations. It's for self-serving interests. And this seems to be another one of those stories right there, which is, this wasn't somebody just trying to do the right thing and talk about how, I think, going back to my opening commentary, my opening monologue, if you want to call it, it's another step to draw us closer into this conflict and make it and give us some sense of ownership. Like somehow Americans will flock to that. Whoa, and our CIA operatives have been, under fire and whatever. It seems to be a very nefarious. There's a nefarious intention behind it, because simply it's somebody else's intention trying to do some kind of crap. All right, so now here we go. So that was leaked right there, right?
Yep.
And that shouldn't come to a surprise as anybody, right? So the CIA is out there doing CIA type of stuff in foreign countries, right? In defense of the homeland and of America. That makes sense. That's what we're supposed to do. But what about this one, guys? Is that what the U.S. and the American intelligence organizations, to include the CIA, right? Without Patrick, I mean, maybe you want to tell everybody like how the whole intelligence community is structured. I say we save that for another day, but we have the intelligence community, right? The IC. So hang on a second. So we're leaking stories about our intelligence operations in a war zone, but okay, I don't know why that's even a leak. Again, there's got to be something nefarious, because obviously we're out there doing that kind of stuff. But what about this, right? This is not what we're supposed to be doing right here. Any takers? Redbeard, Patrick, anybody want to respond to this?
I'll let Patrick take this first. I'm going to look up something to substantiate what I'm going to say.
Patrick?
Okay. Well, I'll just give a couple of anecdotes. I know both from the law enforcement community and time at the agency. And Mark, I know that you've seen some of this as well. We all take the oath, just like any other, government servant, or whether it's intelligence, law enforcement, what have you, to protect and support the Constitution of the United States. When you start to see these things hit the news, it makes you scratch your head and say, hey, how is this even possible? One of the things that was drummed into me when I started there was, hey, we are here to collect intelligence, and we are supposed to be the ones that can deliver truth to power. Truth to power was the big phrase that they used with us. Well, unbiased, straightforward, apolitical, and that's the way it should be. We started seeing certain things that happen, narratives to fit, like, and maybe not a political end, but something that led to a prevailing narrative. And I hate that term narrative, because a narrative is a story. It's not fact. It's not that's not intelligence. So, but people kind of fall into this, and it's driven by groupthink. hey, don't you think that this would happen? And, certain personalities like dominate groups, and that stuff starts to prevail, and that hurts the actual production of real intelligence and passing on that to the decision makers and the policy makers. I've seen it on the law enforcement side. Hey, these people are bad. They could possibly be involved with, some domestic terror group or domestic violent extremist group. Well, that's never really defined. And if you look at the definition of that, there has to be a violent capability or a history of violence in that group before you label somebody or some group a DVE. There's a lot of folks out there that if they were to file FOIA requests with a host of federal agencies, they'd probably find people that have no involvement whatsoever with anything violent, just expressing their First Amendment opinion, or First Amendment protected opinion. So to me, this is just appalling and disgusting, but I know that it's true. So that's not just a news story.
Yeah. All right. Redbeard, agree, disagree? I think you were jotting some notes. So if you,
so
we're trying to do the agree, disagree, but you might want to take in a slightly different direction. So run with it for a sec.
Yeah. So I'm going to be very brief. I don't actually have the thing that I wanted to say, but I do remember enough of the quote, albeit unfortunately, I don't remember exactly which founder it was, but our founders did make the argument that the instruments of war invariably do return back to be used upon the people, right? So we have all of these different instruments, and mind you, instruments of war aren't always kinetic. Mark and Patrick know this. It could be used using intelligence collection resources. It could be using a lot of different things. So we have to be mindful that if we allow our government to use certain instruments for war, invariably it will be used upon us. And the final thing that I want to say is there's always going to be this underlying necessity or this plea to use these things. And there's a quote by William Pitt who addresses this type of thing, which is, necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants, and it is the creed of slaves. You're going to argue that we need to subject our people to these arbitrary abuses with these instruments of war, because we think that there's this great fear. We think that there's this great thing that everybody has to be afraid of, in not realizing the fact that this is all for the usurpation of particular individual liberties and rights, right? So like a perfect example of this is the Patriot Act. And I'm going to leave it there, but I just wanted to say that because, look, this shouldn't be surprising to people. I mean, we continue to grant them more and more leeway on these things, and then we act surprised when they start to turn these very devices upon us. It sucks. It really sucks. But in the end of the day,
hey, remember this for Friday. You just hit. You took a giant freaking hammer, which was probably overkill for the job at hand, and you hit that nail and drove it in with what you said and used upon us. And I think people should start waking up to what Jeremy just said. Hey, the Patriot Act. Hey, terrorism. Like, what Patrick just even alluded to, right? Now, suddenly, all of those tools that we have allowed and we've granted to our government, which Jeremy, and maybe this is a Friday thing, which are totally outside of the scope of the Constitution. Nowhere in the Constitution does it allow for, and again, we're not going to get into that. It's a more detailed, we'll save that for the Friday, the Friday live stream. But at that point, and this is a horrible example. Well, it's not a horrible example, but maybe you're not into science fiction, but think of Star Wars and think of Emperor Palpatine, right? Emperor Palpatine manipulated the Jedi, the Senate, the people, the whole galactic empire, whatever. He manipulated everybody and positioned them into a situation where they wanted this and they allowed that and they granted special powers here. And at the end, all that was turned against them. And that is what's happening in America right now, in my humble opinion. Everything Patrick just said, because Patrick, you kind of made, I don't know if Redbeard, that got your juices going, what Patrick was saying, but that's it. Hey, the Patriot Act. Hey, censorship. This is all about terrorism. Now everybody's a terrorism, because if I call everybody a terrorist, well, then I get to use the tools of the state and the power of the state against my political opponents, maneuvering everybody into a situation where we are right now. Because if you think this is a constitutional republic right now, hey, I got a bridge to nowhere. I'm willing to sell you. I mean, so let's shelve that. Redbeard, help me remember that. Let's shelve that kind of part of the conversation for Friday, because
I'd like to expound
the two of
upon
you
that
guys
more.
just nailed it right there. And anybody watching, again, if I had the time and I would go back, cut that section out, and play that as a clip right there. What those two gentlemen just said. That is spot the F on, right? And that is exactly where we are right now. All right. Any final comments about that? Otherwise, I'm going to move on here, fellas.
I do have one thing I popped up here for you, so I don't know if you guys want to respond to that at all.
All right, let me just read it real quickly. Patrick, can you see that? Can you read it?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Well,
so
of course, yeah, angry Viking veteran. Yeah, wouldn't that give them a degree of separation? That's exactly what happened again. Whether you're for Trump or against Trump, I hope you're an American and you're for freedom and you're for liberty and you're for the Constitution. Angry Viking, you're absolutely fucking correct. That's exactly what has been taking place. This has been transpiring. This isn't just a recent event of the last 8 years. This has been going on. You could trace this all the way back into the Bush Jr. era, if you want to go that far. I mean, you could actually maybe even take it to Bush Sr. and Clinton. I mean, this has been, and Redbeard, maybe we should save this for Friday as well, because I think you'd be able to demonstrate historically the slow moving wheel, where every revolution of the wheel, it's a further encroachment and it's a further reduction. And there's no doubt about it. To that point, it has been demonstrably proven that we use foreign intelligence agencies, our partners. I mean, hell, if you're watching this on Rumble, seriously, go watch some of Bongino's episodes over the last 2 weeks. He's done some stellar, and he's pulling from people who are actually out there doing the reporting, but he's reporting on their reporting, but it's really good. He's really good, does a great job of bringing it succinctly, but Five Eyes. So United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Great Britain, right? Five Eyes. We used our Five Eye relationships to feed information into the Five Eyes, and then it could be fettered back out and then brought back in through political or journalism to foment or change a political decisions, and the political opinion within our own populace. So Angry Viking, you're absolutely correct. That's exactly, and that's not what the CIA is designed to. That is rogue elements within our political apparatus and our unelected government bureaucratic apparatus. And on that note, without wanting to get too much, and they'll save that maybe for Friday, Patrick, I want to give you a chance to respond to that and give your personal opinions from your time there to see, because you may agree or disagree with me. Let's give you a chance here.
No, I agree. I think all this goes back, and I don't want to delve into something you guys are going to talk about later in the week. But I think the Patriot Act was literally the start of the whole thing. And at the time, everybody looked at it like, oh, hey, guess what? We're under attack. We need to root these people out within our population. Well, Redbeard hit it on the nose. Like, eventually, if you don't draw that back or alter it or just remove it, it's going to be used against people that innocent folks have nothing to do with this for other purposes, and that's what's happened, right? So we were talking, just kind of chatting online a little bit, but the quote from Thomas Jefferson that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. Well, that eternal vigilance isn't always our enemies; it's our own government. So if we're not doing that, are we really American? We were born out of strife, with an oppressor. So, why would we not always question our own government? So, when the government pushes back and labels people, enemies of the state, domestic violent extremists, whatever the acronym du jour is, that's a major concern that we all need to take note on, and that's something that we all need to look at. So if there's anything I think folks could take away from this podcast, that would be it. Question everything. The days of conspiracy theory that used to say, hey, that's crazy, that'll never happen. Well, we're here now, folks. So
And if I could just
go ahead, Redbeard.
No, I was just going to bow tie this real quick with saying, Chris Ann Hall, one of my favorite people, and I think becoming one of Mark's favorite people as well, had a very timely quote for this as it pertains to the abuses of power. And she said, standing up for your rights only feels radical when you're enslaved. The problem is not non-compliance. The problem is obedience to the destruction of liberty. So look, in the end of the day, they will do what they feel they can get away with, and we've given them far too much leeway. So
Yep.
Hey, you've got to add that to the ticker for a
Yeah.
future episode. And
Will
by the way,
do.
she is smart as hell.
She's a smart
All right,
lady.
hey, fellas, yeah. Hey, we're at 54 minutes.
Yep.
You know, Redbeard, keeping to your new program, which I'm absolutely in love with. You know, so realistically, we've got another 20 minutes, and then we want to at that point we're going to start doing the outro or your final comment. So with everyone's permission, there's one or two other articles I want to bring up, but let me just kind of go through them, because I think together they're going to set up the next round of discussion that's going to carry us through the next 10 or 15 minutes. So unless you guys got one more pressing comment on what we said to this point, I'm just going to pop up a few articles, let those all kind of stew, and then we'll address them as a group. Okay. Does that sound good? Or Patrick, do you have anything to add?
No, we're good.
Okay. All right. So here we go. So, so I just am going to go down this, trying to keep on the idea of the game plan that we're going on. And, and Redbeard, as I said before, this whole thing, it's like, it's kind of all backwards how you would think it displays in our software. But here we go. So here's one. So while we're thinking and focused on this whole kind of, here we've got our own intelligence, apparatus, and our own law enforcement focused on, on our own citizens and going to war with our own citizens. While that's going on, excuse me one more time, we have our government leaders. Oh, sorry. Oh, I almost kind of did something really stupid there. There we go. We have our own government leaders who are back looking at this type of thought process, the domino theory. And if you remember back during the Cold War in the 60s and the 70s, the whole domino theory, we've got, and I'm not going to go into much detail. I'll let you guys kind of, if you want to come back to this, but just think of this. And everybody knows what I'm saying is true. Intrinsically, more and more mainstream media, articles, newscasts keep talking about if Ukraine falls, then Taiwan falls. It always seems to be this weird domino where it's like, yeah, but that's not what happened in Vietnam. I mean, we lost in Vietnam, and then Vietnam fought China 3 more times since then. So that doesn't really quite to hold true. Yet we've got a bunch of people in our government, the people running our government, elected or unelected, who are trying to sell us this load of BS. Hey, if we don't do this, that's going to be a major problem for us going forward, right?
Right.
And as we as a society are focusing on that. Okay, let me try to find it here. It's probably down the. Oh, I'm going to screw it up right here. Oh, gosh, dang it. Yeah, Jeremy, I'm telling you right now, I'm not really having fun with this. It moved everything around a little bit here.
And cue the barbershop quartet for intermission.
Well, so I'm trying to find the article I have that what is China is talking about, which is, well, okay, here, I got it. I think I found it, right? Okay, it's back on track. So this is an article from a book. And again, I'm going to bring this back over here. Okay, that's full screen. Now let me go to the article. So this is from a book by Peter Schweitzer. Again, whether you want to believe it or whatever the case is, but there are individuals out there doing real reporting and backing it up and providing all their sources and they're backing up what they're talking about. But here's the argument here, and this isn't just necessarily by Schweitzer. There's a bunch of other individuals who are talking about this. And then, so hopefully this shows up, fellas. I'm not looking at our screen. I'm looking at the article. Is what I highlighted now popping up on your guys' side?
Yeah, I see it on my side.
Okay. So the premise of this article, and this goes into it, and Patrick, here I might want to pause to give you a chance to respond to this, because I know you're pretty attuned to what's going on with China right now. But it's basically the argument, and it's not even an argument. The Chinese Communist Party has come out, and the People's Republic Army has come out and talked about, the People's Liberation Army, has come out and talked about this stuff. And it's like, yeah, we can't go toe to toe. So we have to destroy them in a different way. And unlike Americans, other cultures in the world look at the time in a very completely different horizon. It's a much longer horizon. It's much longer timeline. most people probably don't remember their history and what Chinese, or the British, when China and Hong Kong were under British rule, and the drug wars that were going on back then with opium and things like this. But here you have Chinese military leaders who are basically saying, hey, look, man, what a great way. We get a little payback for what happened to us culturally hundreds of years ago. And these people in the West are going to fall victim to this. So instead of trying to go toe to toe and fight American, well, we'll make an argument about how well trained our actual soldiers and Marines and airmen and sailors are. You can put that aside. But instead of going toe to toe with American technology, let's steal American technology and let's destroy America from its soft underbelly. And that's from within. And let's use that with drugs. So China, and Patrick, I'm going to stop right here and give you a chance to talk about this. Have you heard of disintegration warfare? I mean, that's pretty much what is kind of people are starting to realize, because China's been actually talking about this and writing about this and presenting these papers in their military academies for quite some time now. Patrick, is that making sense to you? Have you heard about that? You know what I'm kind of, are you picking up what I'm putting down, sir?
Yeah. This has been going on for quite a while. I think the major thing that caused a lot of this with China was they had a one-child policy for almost 40 years. So, there was a lot of their population that could have been growing up and actually, going to universities, and doing their own research and development for the advancement of their own country. And if some of that was going to be the military, then so be it. Well, because they didn't, one of their primary moves, and this has been going on for probably the last 20 years, while we were, all focused on the global war on terror, the Chinese were saying, hey, let's go over and let's make up for all this time that we've lost, and we can steal the research and development that we need from Western countries. So this is happening all over the place. But so in 2017, they actually put it into law, and they actually require all Chinese nationals to collect information and share it with the Chinese government and say nothing about it. So their own OPSEC piece is written in there. That's going to advance the Chinese government, but specifically the PLA, the People's Liberation Army. So potentially that makes every Chinese national a spy, a collector. So what the term that's been given to them by the U.S. government is non-traditional collectors, meaning they're not trained intelligence officers. They just get briefed on, hey, here's what you're going to do. Here's what we need you to go over to the United States and take part in. Everything from aircraft to medical advances to we're talking also about hypersonics and things like that are weapons that are going to strategically hurt every nation on the planet except for them, or put them in a position where they can use diplomacy with basically a gun pointed at somebody, and they're going to get what they want. So that's what we run into. We as a country are hurt by our own laws, right? So once somebody comes over and they get citizenship or legal permanent residency, that kind of changes how the U.S. government can even track them. I know this is kind of contrary to what we were talking about, but I mean, on a large scale, the U.S. government's pretty good about not bothering with U.S. citizens, but the ones that we should be bothering with, when I say U.S. citizens, I'm including legal permanent residents, but people that came from those, especially the Chinese, China or Hong Kong, because Hong Kong is now China. Those people are basically got perfect placement and access for the PLA and the MSS, which is the Ministry of State Security, which is like their CIA. So we're getting used all the time. So instead of having one person come over and collect a bunch of stuff and try to run things on their own, they all collect a little bit here and a little bit there. It's collection in the aggregate, and that gets sent back to their analysts in China, and they piece all that stuff together. So we're getting our lunch handed to us in this regard, in a bad way. So I encourage everybody to take a look at you can Google it or just research it on your own, the 2017 military civil fusion law that was put into action by the CCP.
All right, give me a second. All right, say that one more time. I'm going to try to put it up as a comment for everybody to see.
Okay.
And there we go, right there.
Nice.
Is that what you're talking about? Patrick?
That's the one. Yep.
Yep. Okay. So I'll leave that up for a couple seconds. All right, boys, we're at just go ahead, Patrick.
Oh, I was just going to say, hey, on that, basically like a total warfare type thing. Look at what we're dealing with China right now. Not only are they focused on the non-traditional collection threat in universities and corporations and that type of thing, they're also involved with the cartel. The precursor chemicals to fentanyl were first produced in China. Now they've actually got chemists that are working directly in Mexico and South America, helping put this stuff together. So when you see these like large, like 100+ pound, seizures of fentanyl at the border, just imagine like what went into making that and just how much more is making it across if that's what's being captured, right? It's just all over the place. The military aggression, the flyovers and on the naval side of things, the threatening, the saber rattling in Taiwan, right now we're in a weak point. So, what happens if they do go take it? Will we even defend them? Who knows, right? So a lot of geopolitical type questions to be asked.
Hey, fellas, Patrick, you just brought a great point of the drugs. You must have seen my show notes, or you're reading my mind. And so here we're at an hour 5, and I'm really going to try to just be the quarterback and make sure we're kind of starting to wrap this up in 10 minutes. So I'm going to skip through I'm just going to post them as so everybody can see where our thoughts were for tonight. But Patrick, what you just talked about is where I kind of want to start wrapping this up. So just bear with me for a quick second, everybody. I just want to just show you some of the things that we were just kind of talking about. So as we're discussing these issues and these real world threats, this isn't hyperbole. This isn't clickbait, fear porn. This is real. This is the reality that we apparently don't want to talk about. And to Patrick's point, we have adversaries who they're not effing around. They take this very seriously. This is a win or lose, and losers die type of, a scenario that we're in on a geopolitical scale. And then here's what we have. And I'm sure you guys, everybody who's watching, whether it's now or later on demand, or everybody knows, we have a quote unquote airman who goes and emoliates himself, self-immolation, burns himself and is, yelling, free Palestine kind of shit. And this person's in uniform. What I didn't really, I don't want to revel in anyone taken their own life or the pain and suffering. And it is reported that he has subsequently died of his wounds. But to this point, I guess what I'm just trying to say is, just like what Angry Viking just said a couple minutes ago, and we have military members who are selling secrets. That is always a threat, right? That's always just going to be a threat. In every military, in our military, in our government, our law enforcement, whatever, our politicians, that's always a threat. But I think to your point, Angry Viking, is, are we even being told how often, what the frequency of this? Because, look, I'm Patrick, and I don't want to speak for you, but I know, see, God dang it, I got to be careful here. I'm just here to tell you, it's happening a lot more than we know about, and it's being reported. That's Patrick. Is that a fair kind of thing to say right there, sir?
Absolutely. I think that what we find out about is the tip of the iceberg. So,
yes,
and that's pretty substantial in and of itself.
Yep. And then while all of that is going on, excuse me, while we're being faced with this level of threat, trials, tribulations, dangers, hardship, adversity, while all that's going on, what do we've got going on in other parts of the world? This right here.
President Biden.
I'm sure everybody knows a little bit of humor over here on Twitter and X.
Mr.
The Italian TV is making fun of our president. So, again, how does this, in any form or fashion, how does this do us any benefit? How does this, impart or, a sense of, wow, don't mess with America? We've got Italian TV making fun of our president right now, and
if I may, real quick, Mark.
All right, go ahead. Yep.
So just not to, I know the Italian TV thing you just brought up, but I just want to go back one step here real quick. With how the military is, has there ever been a stronger argument to have those, like state militias and Minutemen, and I'm not talking about the National Guard. That's beside the point. My point is has there ever been a stronger argument now than probably over 100 years for people
Redbeard,
to
Redbeard, hold your thought
Yeah.
is perfect, and it's going to
Yeah.
be a nice segue into our final
Yeah.
things, because
Yeah.
I want to bring it back to what Patrick
Yeah.
said, and you're saying the same thing. Just give me 1
Yep.
second.
Yeah, go for it. Go for
1
it.
second of bad jokes, but I think it highlights what we're kind of getting at, and
Yeah.
that is this right here, right? So, and this is the fears that, this is what we're dealing with right now. We've got this AI thing going on over at Google. So we've got our own soldiers and airmen, sailors, Marines selling state secrets. Look, I didn't even want to do it. Like, there's so many mashups of men and women in uniform who don't know if they're really men and women, but they're in uniform and they're talking about their gender assignment surgeries and all this stuff. And then we've got this taking place, and I'm sure if anybody who's seeing this, you know what I'm talking about. And Elon Musk had there's a big kind of row and get up with it. So my final point was that right there, Redbeard, as we get into that segment, is we've got real issues, and you guys are both bringing them up. And then we have real issues, and we're not focused on them. Instead, we're talking about all these other fantastical, what the F are we talking about type of thing. So go ahead now, conclude your, if you don't mind.
No, I mean, it's just one of those things to where it's just like, we're at a time now to where it's just like, the average American, if there was ever a time for me to make this argument, and it's been an argument being made for several years at this point, but look, like, go out, get some training, find a group, find, people that you work with and train with and grow with and stuff like that. Like, building a community is more important now than ever before, because look, like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not going to hedge my bets on waiting for cops to come and save me. I'm not going to hedge my bets on waiting for the military to do what needs to be done. Like, we have always been the Minutemen
or our political leaders, Jeremy. Don't throw just there's other people that need to be thrown under the bus here too.
It's one of those things to where well, I mean, a politician's never going to step in front of a bullet, let's be honest. So it's one of those things to where the Minuteman was a very expressed type of individual for various reasons, and it's been a foundation of our country for various reasons. Ready in a minute's notice, right? Like, that was an expectation of us as people, and I think the closest we ever got to that, while not in perfect form, but at a very close form, was the type of civil defense programs, right? Like, it wasn't perfect, but dude, you could go down to your community center, learn how to do all kinds of stuff. So, I mean,
hey, if you don't mind, I love where you're going, and I know Patrick wants to go in that same direction based on some conversations I had with him. So how about,
we might
again,
have to leave it till Friday.
No, because we're at a minute, or not a minute. We're at a minute. We're at 1 minute. Thank you for joining us for our first minute of our podcast. We're at 1 hour and just a little over. So same thing. Let me just pull up the last 3 articles, because I think that'll be a nice segue for the two of you to have your final agree, disagrees, or final comments on the way up, because you're both saying the same thing. Again, you must have read the show notes, and that's kind of what these last 3 articles are going to try to bring it into, is quite specifically what you are now talking about, Redbeard, and what Patrick alluded to when he was talking. So here we go, right here. So
let's do it.
Yeah. So when we're talking about second and third order effects of these larger, we've got larger international, geopolitical, international conflict hotspots. We didn't even, if you've noticed, anybody watching, whether live or on demand, we haven't even talked about the Red Sea. We haven't talked about Iran. We haven't talked about Israel, because it's almost like we're being inundated and we can't keep up with this information. It's coming too fast and furious. So Redbeard and Patrick, give me just a second. Let me just share these last couple articles. So, this is kind of making news. So another illegal immigrant kills U.S. citizen. He had already been deported. There was issues on that. So we've got second and third order effects of us, of our current policies. And no one's talking about those second and third order effects, right? That was one. Let me go to this next one. Yep. And then here, now, I can speak to this, and I'll do this as you guys are looking at. I think it's still full screen. Well, no. Okay. So if anyone's ever noticed in the past, whatever, like over there, there's a picture of me in front of about 50 some million dollars of cocaine. So I've done counter drug operations on the border. This article right here, this is again the second and third order effect of what we're talking about. And I know Patrick is going to have something, and Redbeard, it goes directly what you're saying is the Minutemen. Boys and girls, we are at war. And see the previous comment I made about disintegration warfare. This warfare doesn't always have to be M1 Redbeard. I'm setting you up for Friday. It doesn't have to be M1 Abrams battle tanks, and guys in trenches, right? Warfare is however you think you can defeat your enemy, and you can do it, in the most efficient way possible. Our adversaries have looked at Gulf War, Gulf II, the forever wars, and they realize, hey, like technologically speaking, Uncle Sugar's got some pretty solid shit. So let's figure out a way, because we're never going to match that, and we don't have the economy to match it. So let's find out different ways to do it. And that's exactly what a smart adversary would do. And this is one of them. So this is just another example. This is just recent. That's nothing. If we captured that shipment, how much do you think got across the border? And going back to the beginning of the podcast, hey, we've got more people being killed each year via fentanyl and drug overdoses than we did during the whole span of the Vietnam War. So we've got some serious issues going on. And then the last one, and then bring it to you guys. And this is, and Patrick knows this is going to be my, I just can't get away from it. Unconventional warfare. All of this stuff at the border, if I was your enemy, I would be taking such advantage of, because from a perspective of unconventional warfare, guerrilla warfare, call it what you want, UW, CW, coin, there's a whole kinds of stuff. But you see this guy right here. Okay, he's carrying drugs today, but maybe he's carrying something else tomorrow. And that's just a harsh reality, because, and I'll stop sharing this and I'll bring it to me, my final comment, and I'll let you guys take us out on your comments. Boys and girls, I've been in a couple different places in the world. Not quite sure if I can say where they are quite yet, but I'm sure you know where they are. And this is exactly the type of intel we would try to collect, is to identify the rat lines. What are the smugglers using? Where are the shepherds going? How are they maneuvering? Because these are the, ingress and egress. This is the lines of communication, lines of supply that bad guys, because bad guys, terrorists, are just like drug smugglers. And so I remember one of the last places I ever did operations, and everybody thought I was crazy because I was trying to find a smuggler. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? How do you think all these explosives are getting into the country? Are they flying them into the main capital's airport and then distributing them? No, dude, they're coming across where people are smuggling X, Y's, and Z's. This is what's happening to us right now. We are at war. It's serious. And if we don't wake the F up, we're going to wake up and it'll be too late. On that note, because you guys have both alluded to this, Patrick, you were talking about drugs, fentanyl in China. That's kind of what started this. Redbeard, you were saying, more important now than ever. And I hope those last three arguments, or those last three articles, can help you guys in your yes or no or agree or disagree kind of final comments here. Let's bring it over to Patrick first, because we kind of left you a little while ago. Patrick, does that make sense where I'm trying to go with those last three? And I apologize, I'm trying to cram that through. We're trying to stay on track, but I just didn't want to let those go. That's way too important, and you were already alluding to it the last time you spoke.
Yeah, so I can kind of tie some of this together with what Redbeard said about actually forming citizen groups and things like that. That's become more important and vital than it ever has been, right? So because just the breadth of the threat is so large, from fentanyl to we're letting all these folks in our country. We don't know who they are. Maybe we do know who they are, and then but they're here. Now what? Okay, is somebody going to do something about it? Or there's so many of them, the sheer number that we can't, actually keep tabs of their movement. That seems to be the case, So what does that do for the average citizen? You're again, not to fearmonger, but your probability of encountering one of these folks, it goes up because they're going all over the country. It's not just like, New York, Chicago, LA and these places. It's everywhere, right? And they're just being dropped off in the middle of the night. The local municipalities aren't even, made aware that they're coming. So you don't know who's in your neighborhood anymore, right? Or who could wander onto your property. We just don't know. So so back to that, having a solid plan and like actually bonding and building relationships with those around you, I think would be a very wise thing to do. To the breadth of the threat from the Chinese, they're feeding all of it. Disintegration warfare from goes back to the one of the podcasts before Dime. So the diplomacy, I think we're losing that battle in a harsh way. Every time we sit down with the Chinese, it seems like we're apologizing more than we're gaining anything. The information, we're constantly, there's this battle. TikTok's a huge thing. All these different companies that I think it was 23andMe that's owned by the Chinese. Why are they collecting our data? You take a look at their advancement in technology. There's talk about quantum computing when that comes online, combined with AI, that there will be no more information secrecy, like anything that's encrypted for so-called government, classifications. That's going to go away. And we're talking like within the next 5 years. This is very scary. So will we be in a position where we're, being proactive and trying to come up with the next way to secure our information? I don't know. I can say where I sit, I don't see it. So that's a problem. And then, the proxy battles before this. So there was, I think it was, what was the guy's name? The
Angry Viking.
Angry Viking, yeah, he brought it up about collection by proxy. Well, guess what? I mean, that's one concern. Another concern should be, terrorist attacks within the United States by proxy, because there's so many people coming out of the woodwork with, hey, I'm pro-Palestine and, from the river to the sea and that type of stuff. The Iranians are here to, foment that and push that. The Chinese would be happy to back and support that type of stuff. We've got so many people that came over that were just big question mark unknowns from Afghanistan that are here now that probably don't really want to assimilate and don't much care for, regular Americans. So they'd be willing to hurt. So, when you've got nation states that can do this stuff by proxy, and those are the folks willing to do it, it's going to be an interesting summer. We've got, we got the RNC and the DNC coming up. I think that's in the Midwest. I think the RNC is Milwaukee and DNC is in Chicago. Whew, wouldn't want to be around there at that time frame.
No.
So, you've got that, but then you've also got the government influence side of the house. So that's something hopefully, we're looking at. When I say government influence, I'm talking about like the Chinese and others trying to come in to, push money and influence into certain things. And of course, they'll do that by proxy. They won't do it with with a false flag approach. So, we're living in interesting times. I just hope everyone can, come out the other end still as a united country, and that everybody comes out healthy and safe and with our dignity.
Hey, so just to give you a heads up, so again, our new structure, I think you're kind of aware of it. So we'll be doing part 2 of this on Friday, where we can maybe do a little bit of a deeper dive. We're still going to try to keep it on our same timeline. Maybe Friday, we failed last Friday. That's on me. I own that. But we're going to still try to keep it around that hour and a half. Maybe Friday we can go a little bit more, but
maybe 2 hours.
Yeah, but if but this right here, what you just said, Patrick, I think that's something that people need to start waking the F up and realizing. Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff. On that note, we're at I almost said 1:23 again, Redbeard.
You're getting better.
I'm getting a little better. We're at 1:23, and you still got, again, you brought up a lot of the same topics that Patrick did. So how about if you're okay with this, and Patrick is same with you, if you're okay, we'll still give you one more final comment. But Redbeard, your comment, and then a comment to Patrick, and then outro.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I actually wrote down talking points, so it should be pretty decent. Right. So
all you, Redbeard.
Yeah, so basically, I just want to kind of hit back on what I was mentioning earlier before Patrick, and full disclosure, like, this is a conversation that I do want to have for Liberty Week, because it is, as much as it is a war room conversation, it's very much a liberty centric conversation. So I feel like we're going to come back to this, as we should, numerous times throughout our podcasts. But look, I can't express it enough. You've heard me say it, you've heard Mark say it, you've heard Patrick say it. The emphasis on community, man. The realm of building a community and having strength via a supported community is so big. Like you have got to take on and put those boots on and become your own first responder. You've got to be in that Minuteman mindset. It amazes me that we ever got away from that, because it was so ingrained in us when we started as a country, and we need to get back to that. Because look, when you have a community, that community, when it's squared away and it's good to go, you get you get a sense of security, and security not just in the general aspect of noticing weird things, but also in having gardens and stuff like that, which we'll elaborate way more on down the road. But I think you guys can kind of see where I'm going with that. Now, there are two things I want to bring up. I do believe that you should have a community, train with people, get to know people, have a tight knit thing. Very important. When it comes to that, that is your right. That is within your right. It is a God-given right that is not to be deprived of you. The only way that disappears is when it's not exercised. Right's not exercised, or right's not kept. So when we see things like anti-militia legislation or anti-gathering legislation, look, like you are not bound to follow those types of things. They're unconstitutional. And if you want to fight those things, start with proposing something in your states that nullifies that type of federal overreach, and make that difference right away. Do not wait for it. Get active right away to make sure that you can counterpunch that and put it down for the count. My last point is when it comes to the stuff, and Mark and Patrick, I want to hear your opinions on this, but I think we're all kind of familiar with the guys who go out and find their pred catchers or their predator hunters. Mark, I've talked to you about this, but Patrick, are you familiar with these guys?
Hey, don't open up this can of worms right now, man.
No, but it's going to factor into this.
No, I want you to see my face.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've heard of this. Yep.
Yeah. So why?
Way to go at the end of the podcast, mofo.
But my point is like, look, if we have people that can find like the worst that society has to offer, why can't we take that community that I'm talking about and organize this type of thing to help with the illegal immigration thing? I'm not talking about people getting kinetic with these individuals, right? But I'm talking about, like, if we're doing this with the worst of society and being able to gather people and resources to find these individuals, why can't we do that with people who wrongfully enter our country? Like, in the end of the day, clearly it's not getting done at a governmental level. So like, we have a responsibility to protect our communities. And I think it's something that we could do, you know. What do you say, guys?
No, just leave it with that hanging question, because I don't want to speak for Patrick, but Patrick and I have talked about this before. And I mean, just going into your comment right there, Jeremy, it's like, and I think when we do Liberty Week, and I wrote a note when you were talking, and I wrote this note with you in mind, Patrick, based on some of our conversations, you know, and this goes into your comment about the Minutemen, Jeremy. Like, if our government fails us, you know, doesn't our Constitution, like, again, everybody do your own research, and let's save this a little bit for Liberty Week. But God dang it, like, hey, if the government isn't doing what the government is supposed to do, then are you beholden to that? I mean, like, again, if the government passes a law that is contrary to the Constitution, do you have to abide by that? Because some people would say, well, we've got to do that until it goes to the Supreme Court. Well, by doing that, you've actually given weight or merit to an illegal act, and you don't
wait for things to go wrong.
So I'm just you can already tell I'm a little hesitant, because that is such a great conversation. I personally think we should shelve that until the next Liberty Week, but I want to give Patrick a sentence or two, but don't go too deep on me, sir. I mean, because we could run this for another hour and a half on what you guys are just talking about. So.
No, I'll keep it really succinct. So just, you know, we talked about like China's military civil fusion law. They are a massive threat to us. As somebody put it to me a few years back from the agency, you know, China's enemy number 1, 2, and 3, and everybody else is a far second and third, right? So just be aware of them. Do your own research and study. Check out the military civil fusion law, or they call it the intelligence law. That's important. And then going back to something we discussed earlier. If you're not questioning what your government's doing, then, are you really American? To be American is to be, pushing back and questioning authority, right? It's not just to go along with it. So as somebody I used to know, like to say, be an American, don't be an American, Mark.
I got that from somebody else, but yeah, I used to say that all the time. Are you an American or an American? I think that's from a cheesy movie. I don't remember where I picked it up, but I love that. Thank you for bringing that back into my lexicon. That's going in my hip pocket. Are you an American or American? Hey, that was a funny thing. And Patrick, not to take away from that, the question of authority. I'm glad you just brought that up. So rewind it back 40 minutes ago or something like that. We mentioned this, or I mentioned it. I used to look up to people, even though I didn't agree with them politically, but I used to look up to people who questioned authority. And damn it, Patrick, if you ain't right, all of those people are suddenly silent on so many issues taking place throughout not just our society, but throughout the world. And these have real effects and real impacts. And I think my final comment on that, and maybe bringing it back over to the two of you, and Redbeard for maybe another Liberty Week, but I kind of want to talk about law enforcement. And if you're, a thin blue line person out there watching or listening to this, hey, look yourself in the mirror. Why are there so, see, I'm going to stop right there, but you guys, I think, know where I'm going, because I see so many people who are supposed to be upholding the law who are breaking the law left and right. And that just breaks my heart. But I'm also thinking, if I was Dr. Evil, and I am kind of bald like him, but if I had dolphins with lasers, one of my tactics would be, I'd turn I'd turn your politicians and your government officials against the people, and then make the people hate them, right? And lose faith in them, right? Because that's part of that whole disintegration. Disintegrate the society, disintegrate the family, disintegrate your education, disintegrate your faith in government, institutions. Boom, boom, boom. But maybe we should shelve that for another for Friday or another one there. But all right, Redbeard, I think you should start wrapping us up. Looks like we got let me just take a quick look. We got another Angry Viking. God bless you for hanging out in front.
You're killing it, man.
I dropped the ball. I didn't advertise this at all on social media tonight. Thank you for finding us and other people who are watching. Let me just
thank you guys.
Thank you everybody for doing it. Let me just pop up his last comment here. Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, let's bring that back up on Friday. But I don't know if it really matters if they have the money or not. It's just like, no, we're just not going to do this. Like, I think Redbeard, to one of your points, and maybe we should shelve this for Friday. Like, what if you just said, I don't care. I'm not even going to go to court with you. I don't have to because the Constitution clearly says this. I'm not even, And I don't know if you want to incorporate that in your outro, or if we just want to wait on that until Friday.
I will real quick, because we can hit on that Friday. And that's going to, do you want me to do the outro, or are you good? Or
well, if you're ready for the outro, let's give Patrick, let's just give praises to Patrick for joining us. Seriously, just thank you for bringing your insight and your commentary again tonight. I hope we can see you on Friday to kind of wrap up the War Room Week. As we start developing this, I think we maybe get some of you, the four horsemen, like, hey, it's War Room Week. This is when I show up. Hey, it's Liberty Week. This is when I, maybe we can get this a little bit, kind of more structured. So you guys, but I do appreciate, because I know this was kind of last minute and you're like, these guys asking, what the hell, like,
you're
not
awesome,
like you got the life,
Thanks, Jess.
Yeah, no, but thank you very much. And again, as always, thank you to everybody who watched and listened to the podcast. And on that note right there, I'm turning over to you, Redbeard, because it always puts a smile on my face and warms my heart.
So,
hang on, Patrick, any final comments? I think I skimmed over.
I think I'm good. I think that there's a lot of meat for the next one. So looking forward to digging in on that.
And you said there's a lot of me or a lot of meat?
Meat.
Oh, I thought there was a lot of you too. So,
Whoa. All right.
All right. Trying to put a smile on this, what could have been an otherwise. Look, this is a very serious conversation we had here tonight. and if you're watching this, we're trying to do better. But man, we just try to cram 10 pounds in that proverbial 5-pound bag. An hour and a half doesn't do this any justice. We are being so inundated. There are so many of these stories, so many of these events that if you're not, I don't even know how the average person, myself included, it's so hard to keep up with all this stuff.
Right.
And I think that's by design too. That's my final comment. I'll turn it over to you,
100%.
Redbeard.
Yeah. So I just want to say, like, just on a final point here, and then I'll hit our fantastic little outro. Yeah, no, it's without doubt. Look, when the federal government fails to secure the border, that does befall the states, and it doesn't matter how much the federal government decides it wants to pound its fists on the floor and throw a tantrum like a child, which I would say most children are probably better well-mannered than the federal government at this point. So that would be a derogatory remark towards children. But look, no, that Texas needs to do what Texas has got to do, man, as should every border state. I mean, you don't have to wait around for the government to give you permission, because let's be honest, like the federal government, we are the ones that give them permission to do things. We are the ones that, they derive their authority from. So we need to make sure that that's understood. Texas and in all those border states, including Minnesota, like, guys, we got to get our stuff together. We've got to batten down the hatches. And I don't care what the Fed wants to say about that. We'll continue this conversation on Friday, because I think we need to hit on it again. But
yeah, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right, sir. And if, honestly, final comment on my part, seriously, if that didn't, what you just said, if you didn't somehow feel that in within your being, like the truth of what you just spoke right there, then there could be a grizzly bear right in front of you, and you wouldn't be like, oh, I guess, I don't know. Like you wouldn't be like, you wouldn't be smart enough to realize this thing is about to eat you. Then you're in big trouble. That's
right.
You're in big trouble.
Yep.
Patrick.
So,
yeah, and it comes back to, exactly. You think about, don't want to prolong this, but self-defense type scenario. If, hey, I don't have to wait for somebody to come up and, stick a knife in me and start stabbing me before I respond. Right. So why should we as citizens wait until, we're incarcerated for something that, we didn't commit any violation of the law, or, we're having our own rights in the Constitution being violated. So why wait? Right. So, and you also don't have to be subject to all the illegal immigrants and everything else that happens. It breaks my heart to see that elderly, rancher down there in Texas have to put up with that. Somebody needs to come to his aid and help him out. And I think that's 100%. The type of mentality that we need to have as a nation.
Yep.
Rock and roll. All right, Redbeard. And thank
you. All right,
again,
gentlemen.
To everybody who's watched this tonight, who's joined us on the live stream, and everybody watches this on demand, whether it's on Twitter, X, Rumble, or ScrewTube. We really appreciate it. You are the resistance. Redbeard, take us out, brother.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Patrick, very much. Mark, thank you as always for being a fantastic co-host. I really appreciate you, brother. And look, the flame of liberty shall not and will not ever be extinguished, so long as there are good men and women willing to support and defend it. Look, and that befalls you. We have a constitution that doesn't enforce itself. We got to be party to this, guys, and we got to get into our communities. We got to make that difference we want to see, because if we don't, then we only have ourselves to look forward to our failures. So let's get active, let's get involved, let's get educated, and let's be that difference.
Hey, yep. And then just at the very end right there, hey, thank you. Learn me something. Thanks for joining us. All right, everybody. Be good.
Yeah.
Be safe. All right.
Take care.
Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again on Friday. Last little note. Next week, it's going to be Mondays and Thursdays, 1800 Central Time. But this week, we'll do Friday, March 1st. That'll be our last Friday live stream. Then we're going to switch to Monday nights and Friday nights. All right. Thanks, everybody. Be good. We'll see you again on Friday. Woo!